Hey there, and welcome to exercise number 75. Congratulations that you've reached it this far, because this is the last exercise from the intermediate section. Now, in this one, we need to write a function named deepCopy that receives an object as a parameter and returns a new object that's a deep copy of it. Now, by deep copy, we mean that the two objects appear identical, but they are not referencing the same properties. And I added a small note here saying that the object received as a parameter can contain nested objects, arrays, and maps. Now, I added an example below, but that's kind of useless in a sense because the objects are, they look identical, right? You can see here, House of Dragon, about gender fantasy, and it has 2 years here. So they look identical. This example is not super useful, I think. But I think what's going to be more useful is if we let's just try to return this object. So you might say, well, just return it. I'm going to test it. Oh, they contain the same values, but they are not deep copies. Now you might say, okay, let's destructure it, right? I'm going to destructure it and that's going to fix it. Now let's test it again. And again, it fails. Why? Because this one also has another object inside, and that object is the same reference for both. So we want a deep copy. Now, if you want to solve this exercise for yourself, which I highly encourage you to do, then click on the link in the description. If not, keep watching and we're going to solve it together. Now, let's delete this code that I think proved my point. And let's create a new object I'm going to call result. We're going to return it at the end. And you can kind of guess we need to iterate, since we have an object, we need to iterate through all of its properties. So I'm going to say object.entries of object. For each, and I'm gonna get here a key and a value, and we're gonna do something with it. And again, I cannot just do result of keys value because that's not a deep copy or stuff like that. So I need to see, is this value an object? Is it an array? Is it a map? If it is, then I need to also deep copy it. Otherwise, it means it's a primitive, so I can just assign it. So here we can imagine ourselves doing something like if array.isArray of value, right? We're going to need to deep copy this array. If value instance of map, right? We're going to deep copy this map. Otherwise, if type of value is object and value is different than null and is not a number, because that also has type of object, so not number.is none of value, then I'm going to do deep copy this object, which we already have the function for. It kind of is this function, right? Otherwise, so if it's not one of those that we need to deep copy, that means it's a primitive. It's a primitive, just assign it. So I'm going to do result of key is value. So that's the overall structure that we're going to go with. Now we need to implement 3 functions here: deep copy this array and deep copy this map. And actually for deep copy this object, we're just going to do result of key is deep copy of value, right? Deep copy already copies an object. So we got this one and we can do a return here. Now we need to deep copy the array and deep copy the map. So let's just create a new function. Function deep copy array, that's going to receive an array, and we're going to do return array dot map, and it's going to be an item. And here we're going to need to do some checks as well. Is this item a primitive? Okay, if it is, then I'm just going to return it. If it's an array, we need to deep copy it as well. If it's a map or an object, then again we need to deep copy it. So here we can kind of duplicate this code, and I know this is not going to be the best code because we're going to have quite a lot of copy paste, but I think it's the code that makes the most sense for now and for you to understand this exercise. And if you look in the solution afterwards, it's going to be a better code than the one I'm going to write right now. So here I'm going to do the same if. So I'm going to say if the item is an array, I'm going to return deep copy array of item. If it's a map, here we're going to need to do deep copy map, right? And if it's an object, then we're going to do deep copy object, otherwise return item. So otherwise it's a primitive. And then similarly, we're going to do with the map. So I created this deepCopy array. Let's use it here. Result of key is, and there's no cat, of key deepCopy array of value, return, right? And then we need the map. So I'm going to do function deepCopy map, and we're going to do get here a map. And let's do const copied map is new map. And we can do map.forEach. And here I think I'm gonna get the key. I think this is how it works, right? Let me just mdn map for each. I don't remember how the for each in a map works. Ask me in 3 days. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it right now. So for each is gonna be value. Okay, yeah, value, key, and map. Okay, so it's a bit different than the array. So value, key, and map. Okay, so I'm gonna get for each value, key. And here we're gonna do the same. So I'm just gonna copy this. So if the value is an array, then I'm gonna do copied map dot set key is this one, deep copy item of value. So I'm gonna put to that key, but I'm gonna deep copy the array, right? And then I'm gonna return. Now, if it's a map, then I'm gonna do similarly, but we're gonna recall this function. So copied map dot set key, deep copy map of value, and return. And finally here we're gonna do, and now I realized this one shouldn't be returned, should be like this, deep copy of value, because we're in a map. And here I'm gonna do copied map dot set key is deep copy of value. So this is an object, we're gonna deep copy it with using the initial function, right? So let's also put deep copy object. Now, if it's a primitive, then I'm gonna just do copied map dot set key value, and finally return copied map. Now, we have a lot of duplicated code here, and actually before we fix that, let's just do result of key is deep copy map of value. So we have a lot of duplicated code, but which kind of makes sense, is easy to read in a way, right? So we care about those 3 data types. We need to also deep copy: objects, map, arrays. But I don't really like this because there's a lot of copy paste. So what I want to do is actually create a new function here. I'm going to say function deep copy value, and it's going to get a value which is going to be anything. And we're going to just do those if. So if the value is an array, we're going to call deep copy array. If value is a map, return deep copy map of value. If it's an object, deep copy of object, otherwise return value. So if it's a primitive, we just return it. And here we can remove all of this code and say copied map dot set value deep copy of, set the dot key deep copy of value. Return deep copy of item. And now I realize deep copy value, deep copy value. And actually let's rename it. Let's rename it to generic deep copy. So this one is gonna call generic deep copy. This one the same, the array. And then this one is gonna do similarly. Result of key is generic deep copy of value. So now we removed a lot of duplicate code. And if it's an object, we go for each one. We do the generic deep copy, the same with the array inside the map, the same with the map inside the for each. And this one is going to do the ifs just once. So it's going to say, hey, is this an array? Okay, then we need to deep copy the array. If it's a map, deep copy the map, otherwise deep copy. And this looks legit, I think. So actually, let's also remove this because I don't need it. So let's test it. Let me just take this object from here. And let's just do console log deep copy of this one. And we get the object that we also inputted. That's correct. Let's also add another year here, 2024, array of 3. Okay. But now the test is, will it pass? Because the tests in this exercise actually check the references. So let's test our solution, and voila, it works. Cheers, and see you in the advanced section.